The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Oh, you couldn't see my hit. What kind of hit was that? Well, anyways, hello everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, the 18th of August, episode 219 here on NOK Network, the Video News Podcast. Oh, that's right. I'm reading on this one where I gotta being reported in mainstream media. Shout out to the guys in Dead Rigger from the Kirkland Lake, Ontario for the awesome intro track, originally recorded by the Moody Blues with some customized changes for our show. I am joined by my amazing joint hosts, Tara Simpson, along with the one and only Booful of Various, who has chosen all of our stories for us. Hello, Tara.
Well, hello, hobbies, and hello, everyone. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Bufo. He's our Sonoran desert toad, or Colorado mud toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And while that sounds like good fun, park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't go licking the toads.
Don't go licking the toad. I think I'm gonna when we finally make a Bufo's puppet. I think that that's gonna be his song. Is "Don't go licking the toads" or something like that.
Absolutely.
And if you want to know why and a little bit of history of it, go watch our last week's episode about milking the desert.
Yes, and the harm that it's causing with not harvesting said toads and substance sustainably. We need to protect these toads and still be able to access the medicine. So we need to find a safe way to do that so that we don't lose this medicine forever.
All right, so this brings us to our first article, which was our fourth article last week we didn't get to. Here is AlaskaNewsSource.com. We're gonna show a little video, tell you the title. Here is Massachusetts officer to share groundbreaking mental health and physical or psychedelic mental health and psychedelic insights at Anchorage's Arctic Visions Conference. And this is by Johnson Kuhn. And they're gonna play this. This was last week on the 6th.
As Alaska communities grapple with mental health and addiction epidemics, local leaders are now searching for out-of-box solutions.
Now, a featured speaker at this weekend's Arctic Visions Psychedelic Conference in Anchorage is gaining international attention for bridging the gap between first responders and recovery. Johnson Kuhn has the story.
That's right. Massachusetts Police Lieutenant Sarko Jajarian says the key to reform is transformation. Jajarian will be sharing data at the conference he says shows how turning officers into community guardians is a vital step to healing those very communities. Lieutenant Jajarian co-founded CLEAR, that stands for Community and Law Enforcement Assisted Recovery, in 2014, a pipeline linking public health and police work. He says he believes by surrounding those in need with recovery instead of handcuffs during an act of crisis, officers can build lasting, life-saving trust. As a speaker at this year's conference, he'll share his perspective around federally sanctioned MDMA therapy's impact on saving civilian and first responder lives from severe PTSD.
It's the effort we put towards humans in their moments of crisis, in their weakest moments, that they remember. It leaves an emotional imprint. We figure out how to fly to the moon, but we can't figure out a way to safely introduce these amazing compounds to adults who might need them.
Now, the Arctic Vision Psychedelic Conference runs this Saturday through Sunday at the University of Alaska Anchorage's Fine Arts Building. Additional information about the conference is on our website and mobile app. Johnson Kuhn, Alaska's news source.
So I did see Bufo putting this on our thing, but for this week to tell us how it went, because it will happen last weekend. But that looks like a cool thing. It happened at the University of Alaska, Anchorage.
Yeah, what's interesting is this seems to be a common theme that we're seeing emerge with people speaking out, especially our first responders and our veterans, both here in Canada as well as in the US for you guys, speaking out about the fact that they suffer from these conditions and they've tried everything else, but nothing worked. But then they do these different psychedelic compounds and they have success. That's huge. That's a huge breakthrough, being that we know that our first responders and veteran populations are suffering horribly, and the suicide rate amongst them is through the roof, including here in Canada. This past week alone, we lost 3 first responders to suicide in Ontario. And that's pretty significant in 1 week, if you ask me, when these same people who probably did reach out for help. I mean, I can't say for certain because I don't know them personally, but I would imagine that if they were struggling, that didn't go unnoticed, but it went untreated with probably pharmaceutical solutions and maybe some therapy, which didn't work. And here we have these compounds. We've known for many years these compounds are helping people, but we have all this political red tape with FDAs and, Health Canada here in Canada and all of this stuff. And yet people are still suffering. But yet we're seeing people say, oh my God, this worked for me.
Oh, right. We are. And that brings us actually to our next article, because SciPost.org wrote, psilocybin therapy sessions for PTSD are mostly silent, study finds. And you've probably been curious of what happens inside that closed door. This is written by Eric W. Dolan.
Yeah, a recent study published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology indicates that during high-dose psilocybin treatment sessions for post-traumatic stress disorder, participants and support staff spend the vast majority of their time in silence. The research suggests that the support provided during these sessions relies primarily on quiet, unobtrusive presence rather than active talk therapy. This offers an updated perspective on how the clinical administration of psychedelic compounds actually functions. Psilocybin is the psychoactive compound found in certain species of magic mushrooms. In recent years, it has gained attention as a potential medical treatment for various mental health conditions, including post-traumatic stress disorder, commonly known as PTSD. PTSD is a mental health condition triggered by experiencing or witnessing a terrifying event, often leading to severe anxiety, flashbacks, and uncontrollable thoughts. In clinical trials, psilocybin is actually administered in a controlled setting with trained support staff present to ensure safety. A common misconception is that patients undergo traditional talk therapy while actively under the influence of the drug. This idea partly stems from the structure of other experimental treatments, such as in trials involving MDMA, which often feature active verbal psychotherapy during the drug sessions. Because high doses of psilocybin induce intense, internally focused, altered states of consciousness, carrying on a regular therapeutic conversation is often impractical. There's a general misunderstanding around the term psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. It implies that a psychedelic drug is administered to boost a form of psychotherapy, which most people understand as verbal to and fro between a patient and a therapist, said Guy M. Goodwin, Chief Medical Officer at Compass Pathways and Emeritus Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Oxford. Goodwin added, in fact, as our papers show, the vast majority of the time there is spent in silence when a patient takes a 25 milligram dose of Comp 360 psilocybin. There's no psychotherapy going on, so it makes more sense to call this psychedelic treatment, which clearly places the emphasis on the drug's effect.
To explore these interactions, the scientists analyzed data from an open-label clinical trial involving 22 adult participants. All the participants had been diagnosed with PTSD, had a baseline score on the standard diagnostic scale indicating moderate to several symptoms. Each person received a single 25 milligram dose of synthetic psilocybin formulation known as Comp 360. The clinical outcomes for these participants provided important context for understanding the treatment's impact. The particular study was in patients with PTSD. Most of the patients experienced the clinical trial a significant reduction in symptoms after a single 25 milligram dose of Comp 360 psilocybin. Goodwin noted most described the treatment as preferable to either the drug or psychotherapy they had previously received. The rapid ones of these improvements stood out to the researchers. When asked about unexpected findings, Goodwin highlighted the immediacy of therapeutic benefit, which had not been seen before PTSD. The treatment process involved 3 distinct phases. First, participants attended 3 preparation sessions with 2 trained support providers. Next came the administration session with lasted 6 to 8 hours, during which participants lay in a dimly lit room, wore eye shades, and listened to a standardized music playlist. Finally, participants attended the follow-up sessions to discuss their experiences. The researchers recorded audio from all the sessions and transcribed the conversations. Then they calculated the speech rate, measured in words per minute, for both the participants and the support providers. When analyzing the data, the authors controlled for the fact that each participant had multiple sessions, that some participants shared the same support providers. This mathematical control helped ensure the models accurately reflected the underlying speech patterns without falsely inflating the confidence of the estimates. In addition to calculating word counts, the researchers conducted in-depth interviews with the participants in the administration session. The interviews provided qualitative data about how the participants felt regarding the support they received. The researchers also asked participants to complete a questionnaire measuring the intensity of the altered state of consciousness at the end of the psilocybin session. The analysis of the audio transcripts showed a stark contrast in speech rates between the different phases of the trial. During the psilocybin administration session, an average of 78% of the time passed without any talking. Whew. In comparison, silence accounted for only 25 to 30% of the total time during preparation and follow-up sessions. Wow. I don't know if I could go that long without fucking talking, not even to myself.
During the preparation phase, the words spoken per minute were generally balanced between participants and support staff. In the follow-up sessions, the participants spoke at much higher rate than the providers. During the administration session itself, the speech rate for both groups dropped to very low levels. The talking that did occur mostly took place at the very beginning and at the very end of the 6 to 8 hour window. The researchers also found a negative correlation between the intensity of the psychedelic experience and the amount of talking. Participants who reported more intense feelings of boundlessness or ego dissolution tended to speak even fewer words per minute. This suggests that more immersive drug effects naturally limit the capacity or desire for verbal communication. The post-session interviews provided evidence that participants appreciated the quiet approach of the staff. Many individuals reported that the support was unobtrusive but highly impactful. The quiet presence of the staff allowed participants the freedom to focus inwardly on autonomously navigating their own thoughts. The internal focus is central to how the authors view the treatment mechanism and future application. Goodwin explained the team's hope that psychedelic treatment will be available for depressed patients who have not responded to conventional treatments next year, and that it involves an inwardly directed interpersonal experience, not psychotherapy. When participants did need support, it typically took the form of a brief reassurance or validation. This included a staff member briefly holding a participant's hand or offering a short verbal reminder of their physical location. Participants indicated that these small gestures provided an anchor of safety during periods of emotional intensity. A small sample size is a primary limitation of this study. It only included 22 individuals. The trial was also open label, meaning both the researchers and participants knew they were receiving psilocybin. Additionally, the measures of words per minute is relatively simple metric for capturing the complexity of human language and clinical interaction. A lack of conversation during therapy might outwardly resemble an absence of emotional support. However, the interview data suggests the quiet presence of staff members actively provided a strong sense of safety. The findings do not imply that verbal engagement is unimportant in mental health treatment as a whole. Instead, the research indicates the high-dose psilocybin sessions function differently than conventional talk therapy, relying on passive monitoring rather than active dialogue. Future research could expand on these findings by studying larger groups of patients undergoing psychedelic treatments. Scientists might use natural language processing software to analyze the emotional tone or somatic content of speech during these sessions. Authors are already looking ahead to broader applications for their work. We are in the process of submitting data to FDA in pursuit of an approval for the treatment of difficult to treat depression with COMP360 psilocybin. We are also starting a major late stage study in PTSD, Goodwin stated. He concluded, we are not surprised by the findings of this study. We are very proud of COMP360's differentiated clinical trial that has the potential to help many millions of patients in need of new and effective options. And I would agree with that, because what we're doing currently with these pharmaceuticals seems to just be a merry-go-round of misery for a lot of people. Maybe not everyone, but the vast majority are not having the success that they could have with maybe, say, psilocybin, which seems to be having better effects than anything we've seen to date.
I agree. And that brings us into our third article, the clinicaltrialvanguard.com. And this kind of involves a little more like coolness into the studies. They say LSD just beat phase 3 twice. Now comes the hard part. And this is written by Leonardo Vando, MD.
Yeah, so this is another interesting one. The field keeps treating psychedelic clinical validation as a future tense problem. After Definitive's therapeutic DT120 cleared phase 3 in both major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. It isn't anymore. 2 pivotal wins, 2 indications, 1 LSD formulation. The question that mattered 2 years ago, whether this case of compounds or this class of compounds could survive randomized controlled scrutiny, has been answered. The question that matters now is harder. Which patient, which session, and what happens when the protocol meets the clinic? I asked that from a specific vantage point. Having treated more than 30,000 patients with guided ketamine therapy through MindBloom, I watched a rapid acting mechanism move from promising signal to standard of care infrastructure. With all that friction that journey creates, Definitum is now at the same threshold ketamine crossed a decade ago, except the session economics, the integration requirements, and the regulatory novelty are all simultaneously larger.
So, what 2 phase 3 wins actually prove? The D120 program, formerly developed under the MindMed name MM120, built a phase 2 signal robust enough to earn FDA breakthrough therapy designation for GAT in March 2024. The Voyage trial confirmed what the designation anticipated: a single dose formulation producing statistically significant, clinically meaningful anxiety reduction. The Emerge study had already done the same for depression using the Montgomery-Åsberg Depression Rating Scale at week 6. 2 independent phase 3 programs, 2 primary endpoints cleared. That is not noise. What makes this make cannibalistically interesting alongside ketamine is the convergence on rapid acting antidepressant and anxiolytic effects through the completely different receptor profiles. Ketamine works primarily through NMDA antagonism, producing dissociation and the antidepressant effects within hours. DT120 works through serotonergic agonism, particularly at 5-HT2A receptors, producing a qualitatively different altered state over a longer session window. Both produce a durable effects from a single acute intervention. That shared outcome through divergent mechanisms suggests something important about the neurobiology of treatment-resistant mood anxiety states. Plasticity, not just receptor occupancy, may be the therapeutic substrate. Compass Pathways COMP360 cleared phase 3 in treatment-resistant depression. Add psilocybin to the conversion, making it harder to dismiss the class effect as compound-specific. Look, in my practice, the patients who responded most durably to ketamine are not always the one with the highest baseline severity scores. They are often patients who can tolerate ambiguity during the dissociative state, who sufficient psychological scaffolding to metabolize an acute neurobiological shift in a new behavioral baseline. Phase 2 biomarker study in psilocybin-assisted therapy for GAD found that only 44% participants responded and 27% achieved remission, and identified a 4-gene expression panel predicting whose responders would be if something comparable exists for LSD-based therapy. The Voyage and Emerge data sets are enough to find it. Nobody should find an NDA without running that analysis. Wow.
Yeah. The protocol assumptions that won't survive the clinic. Here is the design implication that the field is not discussing loudly enough. LSD session protocol in research settings run 8 to 12 hours of supervised contact per treatment day, a structural requirement no current reimbursement framework is built to absorb. Ketamine, even in its IV form, runs 2 to 4 hours per infusion. S-ketamine in the REM's program requires 2 hours of post-monitoring. The FDA's esketamine approval pathway created a supervised administration model that took years to operationalize at a scale that was for a shorter session with well-characterized safety profile. LSD session length is not a minor logistical footnote. It is the central implementation challenge, and trial protocols so far treated as someone else's problem to solve at the commercialization stage. There is also a population level enrollment problem accumulating quietly. In my bilingual clinical work across 36 states, GAD in Spanish-speaking patients presents with higher somatic burden, significant stigma around altered state therapies, and near zero representation in psychedelic trial cohorts. The patients carrying the greatest unmet burden in anxiety disorders are the least likely to have been in the Voyage trial. If the approval label eventually reflects a sample that skewed towards English fluent, high health literacy participants with no comorbidities, SUD, the generalizability gap will be real, and the field will spend years catching up to it. I'm waiting for Definium's NDA submission timeline and any signal from FDA on how they intend to handle the session supervision REM's question for a full agonist psychedelic. The regulatory conversation will set the structural template for the entire class, and it is going to be more consequential than any single efficacy readout. Yeah, I guess, I mean, the longer the lasting of the drug, the longer they have to be monitored. And how do you make that feasible financially as well as at a treatment model level to correspond with the amount of people who may require this treatment, right? That's yet to be seen.
Oh yeah. And I just talked to a guy the other day, he was saying, dude, I took too much acid and it messed up my mind for the rest of my in my life. And I asked them, how much did you take? And they're like, 2 hits. And I'm like, so you didn't microdose it? And, so, and they're like, no, we took too much. And that's just it. You don't know. And then you hear that, and then they tell their doctor or their friends, and then all of a sudden everybody's scared that, if you take acid, your wires are going to be screwed up, And no, if you take too much acid, your wires are going to be screwed up. You need to take, there's a proper dose. There's ways to do it. There's ways to use it for healing.
Yeah, it's hard to say, right? Everybody's different. And for some people, LSD seems to fix the wiring issues. And for some people, maybe they feel it's led to some of their other issues. Or maybe they just haven't digested what happened to them during that experience. And they need to pull all of that apart. Maybe it didn't fuck them up like they think it is. Maybe it was trying to tell them something we just haven't deciphered yet.
Right. Well, it's medication time.
That's right, folks. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our amazing sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles Bufo has chosen, making mainstream media news.
Back in 4 minutes and 20 seconds here on Psychedelic Reporters on NLK Network.
Dirty Dave, award-winning cultivator for over 4 decades. Dirty Dave, prized genetics fueled by advanced nutrients, original OG organics.
Everybody must get stoned. Yeah, well, they stone you when you're walking down the street. They stone you when
Dirty Dave, award-winning products available at these fine establishments. Ask your shop to carry Dirty Dave. Contact us at dirtiesdoggies@gmail.com.
Join us for NOK Network monthly specials, 12 months a year, movie nights, spotlights on entertainment, and live on location coverage. Stay up to date about upcoming programming by subscribing to NOK Network on Rumble, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Facebook. Check out our webpage at www.noknetwork.com.
Hey, hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimated Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyendinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dab make the homies all dip set.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Hold it in, feel it in your wrist.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Check us out in Tyendinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyendinaga. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Now we get back to the show.
And we're back from our medication session live here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
And we have another set of stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So let's get at it. Okay, so their next article comes out of SciPost States. Psychedelic drug calms hyperactive brain cells linked to chronic pain. And this is written by Karina Petrova.
Yeah, so this is another interesting one, especially for someone like myself who suffers with chronic pain regularly and has accidentally found that psilocybin actually helps with my pain symptoms. So a single dose of psychedelic compound psilocybin can rapidly relieve both chronic pain and the symptoms of anxiety, depression that often accompany it. The drug achieves this dual effect by calming hyperactive brain circuits associated with these conditions. The research was published in Nature Neuroscience. Chronic pain rarely exists in isolation. People who suffer from persistent physical pain often develop mood disorders like anxiety, depression. These conditions can feed into one other thing, making the pain feel worse and making the depression harder to treat. Standard medical treatments usually address the physical pain and the mood symptoms separately, often with limited success. Researchers suspect these conditions share an underlying physical root in the brain. Brain scans of individuals with chronic pain and depression often show abnormal activity in the anterior cingulate cortex. This region of the brain helps process emotion and the unpleasantness of pain. Psilocybin is the primary psychoactive ingredient found in magic mushrooms. Once ingested, the body converts it into an active molecule called psilocin. Psilocin binds to the serotonin receptor in the brain, which are the same receptors targeted by many standard antidepressant medications. Recent clinical trials have shown that psilocybin can provide lasting relief for severe depression. Separate observations suggest it may also help with chronic nerve pain. University of Pennsylvania researcher Joseph Chidden, Ahmad Hamo, and Stephen Weiser wanted to see if a single treatment could target the shared brain circuits of both conditions at the same time. To this study, the research team first established chronic pain in laboratory mice using two different methods. One group of mice received a minor surgical nerve injury to stimulate long-lasting nerve pain. Another group received a specialized injection into the pod to create persistent inflammatory pain. After a few weeks, both groups of mice displayed severe sensitivity to light physical touch. They also began to show behaviors that researchers use to gauge anxiety and depression in rodents. For example, they spent less time exploring open, exposed areas, and they showed less motivation to keep moving when placed in water. The researchers then gave the mice a single systemic injection of psilocybin. The next day, the mice showed a complete reversal of their physical pain sensitivity. Their mood-related behaviors also returned to a normal baseline levels. This restorative effect lasted for 12 days, which was the end of the testing period. Wow, that's pretty crazy, actually.
It is, and wow, it's mice, and it's I don't know. I'm still confused on how that tells me on the human part. But
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not a fan of animal testing, just putting that out there to everyone who's watching. I don't condone this type of testing. However, it is very interesting research.
Yeah, and they did it to verify that the psilocybin was actually relieving the negative experience of the pain. The team used a behavioral test. Two connected rooms. The mice were given psilocybin in one specific room and a plain saline solution in the other. When given the freedom to choose, the mice with chronic pain strongly preferred to spend time in the room where they had received psilocybin. Healthy mice without pain did not show this preference. This indicates that the mice associated the environment with the relief of their discomfort. Pain signals travels from the body up the spinal cord into the brain. The researchers needed to find out exactly where the drug was acting to provide relief. They injected psilocin in directly the lower spinal cords of a group of mice with nerve pain. This local spinal treatment did not improve the animal's pain or mood behaviors. Next, they injected the psilocin directly into the anterior cingulate cortex of the brain. This direct brain application rapidly reversed both the physical pain sensitivity and the signs depressed mood. This result suggests that the drug works by altering networks in the higher brain centers rather than blocking pain signals at the spinal level. To observe a brain activity in real time, the team used a technique called two photon calcium imaging. This allowed them to look at an individual brain cells in the anterior cingulate cortex of awake mice. They found that the mice with chronic pain had abnormally high levels of spontaneous cellular activity in this brain region. When the researchers applied psilocin to area, it rapidly suppressed this erratic hyperactivity. The overactive cells quieted down to match the activity levels seen in healthy mice. Psilocin interacts with several types of serotonin receptors, specifically ones known as 5H2A and 521A, to figure out which receptors were responsible for the healing effect. The team gave the mice drugs that blocked these specific receptors before administering the psilocybin. Blocking either the 5H2A receptor or the 5H21A receptor completely stopped the psilocybin from working. The mice remained in pain and continued to show depressed behaviors to demonstrate that psilocybin requires access to both of these serotonin receptor types simultaneously to initiate its healing effects. In pharmacology, a full agonist is a drug that turns a receptor on completely. A partial agonist, like psilocybin, only turns it on partially. This Researchers tested what would happen if they different drugs to fully activate 5H2A and 5H21A receptors in the mice. Activating the receptors fully, even at the same time, failed to replicate the broad therapeutic effects of psilocybin. The mice did not experience the same comprehensive relief from pain and mood issues. The researchers suspect that the partial activation provides by psilocybin creates a specific balanced modulation of brain cells that full activation cannot achieve. Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. While these animal studies offer a detailed look at brain circuitry, mice are not humans. Brain structures and subjective experience of pain differ between species. It is not yet known if the specific dosage that provided relief in mice will translate safely and effectively to human patients. The researchers tracked the mice for 12 days after a single dose. It remains unseen exactly how long the pain relief might last beyond that window. Future studies will be needed to explore how this brief chemical intervention translates into long-term physical changes in the brain. The authors suggest that calming the hyperactive brain cells might allow the brain to physically rewire itself, breaking the cycle of chronic pain and depression over time. The study, single-dose psilocybin rapidly and sustainably relieves allodonia and depressive-like behaviors in mice models of chronic pain was authored by Ahmed Hamo, Stephen Weiser, and Joseph Cheyenne. So it is interesting from my perspective because I started using psilocybin probably, I don't know, I'm going to say about 7 years ago now, specifically because I heard that it can help anxiety and depression, which was like my biggest issue besides my chronic pain. But I accidentally found not only does it help the anxiety, depression, mood stabilization, it also helps my focus. It has curbed my chronic migraines by 98%. And on top of that, it does help when I'm having a bad pain flare. A single dose, microdose, seems to take the edge off better than anything I've ever been put on in my life. And I've been on a lot of pharmaceuticals. So it is interesting that it does seem to do something. Why it seems to work for someone like myself, again, this is why we're doing research. But I think we need more real-time research on human subjects, complete with MRIs of the brain, complete with all of those tests, so we can see what's going on. Why does it work for us? What is it doing? And is this something that could become mainstream, right? it's better than all the other options I've been on. So I'm not going to knock it. It's working and doing something for us.
I agree. And there's still so much to learn and so much things that help different people and for them to find out. So that brings us to our next article, which is off of the Axios.com, Indiana funding magic mushroom research. And this is by Erica Heron.
Yeah. Well, Indiana is generally late to the party on drug reform and deregulation, i.e., legal weed. The Hoosier state is at the forefront of medical research into psychedelics as mental health treatment. Why it matters. Research has highlighted the promise of psychedelic compounds in treating mental illness like depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. A team from Indiana University with backing from the state is contributing to that research with a clinical trial treating veterans and first responders suffering with treatment-resistant depression and substance use disorder with psilocybin, also known as magic mushrooms. The big picture, the federal government gave psychedelic research the green light in April, and some in the industry expect FDA approval for a psychedelic treatment to come as early as this year. Veterans have emerged as the leading group campaigning to take psychedelic treatment therapy mainstream. State of Play, Helen Fox, an associate professor of psychiatry at the IU School of Medicine, says research has already demonstrated unprecedented findings for psychedelics in treatment-resistant depression and other mental health issues. Now, she said, studies are becoming more nuanced. Her taxpayer-funded clinical trial seeks to answer which dose of psilocybin, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 25 milligrams, is safe for effective treatment of depression and substance use. Patients receive a single dose paired with 6 weeks of psychotherapy. What they're saying, we can be optimistic, Fox said during a recent panel discussion about the role of psychedelics in mental health care of veterans. We have to be cautiously optimistic. Zoom in. Fox's research is funded in part by the Therapeutic Psilocybin Research Fund created by the Indiana General Assembly in 2024 to help Hoosier research institutions study the use of psychedelics or psilocybin to treat mental health conditions and other medical conditions. Last year's budget allocated $300,000 to the fund for this year and next.
So what's next? Senator Scott Baldwin, our Nobesville, says he's advocating for continued funding in the next budget writing session starting in January. There's already been a request to do so, so he tells Axios from the Independent Department of Veteran Affairs, the Mental Health American of Indiana. Yes, but Indiana providing funding for research, it's not the same as legalizing psychedelics, which are still Schedule 1s or even considering. Oh, these are questions. I don't know if we're going to get to the point where we're going to legalize something until we see the results of study, Baldwin says. We're not going to get there until we continue the fund research. Bottom line is we need to keep rolling with the research, Fox says. The program we've kickstarted at IU, I think, is going to go places. If Indiana gets this right, it will really showcase Indiana as a state can support not only initial research, but rigorous research. Hey, Mr. Indiana Governor, next time that bill for medical marijuana comes up, I want you to know that helps with my puppet mental health. So if you are backing psychedelics for only mental health reasons, hey, buddy, you should have backed cannabis for years then.
Absolutely.
All righty. So that brings us to our next article, which is the last article of the day. NeuroSpa reflects on psilocybin treatment 1 year in. Off of AspenTimes.com, NeuroBloom will continue offering life challenges experiences year 2, and written by Grace West.
Yeah, so NeuroSpa, a licensed psychedelic healing center with locations in Aspen and Basalt, have been providing individuals, couples, and group psilocybin journeys to relieve personal trauma, anxiety, depression, or for self growth for almost a full year now. The program, called NeuroBloom, offers a safety screening, preparation session, journey, and post journey integration, along with complimentary exploratory consultation with Dr. Brooke Allen, the medical director at Neuro Spa, for those who are interested in pursuing treatment. What I have seen over this first year again and again is the courage it takes for someone to walk through the door and be willing to meet themselves in a new way. Megan Adams, NeuroSpa lead psychedelic integration specialist, said, "There's something powerful about watching someone approach the medicine with openness and then finding the courage to surrender to the experience." Psilocybin is a naturally occurring psychedelic compound found in certain species of mushrooms, according to a press release. When ingested, psilocybin is converted in the body to what is called psilocin, which interacts with the serotonin receptors in the brain to alter perception, mood, and cognition, according to previous reporting from the Aspen Times. Many individuals seeking this service in Basalt have come with the aim of healing family trauma or persistent grief, or when they feel like they've gotten stuck due to burnout or a major life transition and more. According to Dr. Allen, both individuals and couples have signed up for the work, sometimes healing together, but often working separately. She noted she was surprised by how many older individuals have sought the medicine and how little demand for group work there has been. The thing I continue to be amazed by is just how different everyone's journey is, she added, and just how beautiful connection is. NeuroBloom has seen roughly 1 to 2 clients reaching out each week, but she can recommend psychiatric counseling before allowing some individuals to receive the natural medicine due to current medications they're taking or their mental health history. So that's cool. They're doing some due diligence and making sure that they know what they're dealing with before they're giving clients medicine. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. And clients coming to the medicine who might not feel that they are ready for a big journey are also able to receive smaller dose journeys of psilocybin. One thing we've learned is the need for having smaller doses, maybe even offering those in a group setting, whose can be much more affordable for people, Allen said. When the Adams reflect on NeuroBloom's evolution of psilocybin treatment since introducing it a year ago, she noted people have come to the table knowing a lot more about what psychedelic therapy is than they did before. People used to ask what it is or how does it work. How many more are nuanced questions about preparation, safety, and integration process? One thing that hasn't changed, really important to us, is maintaining the healing happens through relationships. She said that that's how we've continued refining how we prepare our clients and supporting them during the session and how we walk alongside them afterwards. NeuroBloom currently has 4 practicing facilitators on their team, each with their own background, their own training, and their own strong reason for what brought them to the work. It's great to be a team of practitioners who are constantly learning, growing, and collaborating, Adams said. After practicing for a year, it's really lovely to see that this field with our practice is really about human connection. With the success of psilocybin, NeuroBloom is looking ahead at how they might offer other psychedelic medicines to be included as part of the natural medicine program for the state of Colorado, ibogaine medicine for a root break of Central Africa, and DMT dimethyltryptamine might be options in the future. Those are things that we're waiting on, Allen said. But we are trying to get as much information about psilocybin at the point and make people know that other resources are here for them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Adams added that there has also recently been interest expressed in having monthly or bi-monthly integration circles to allow people who have previously worked with the medicine to have the opportunity to check back in with the space facilitators and peers who have also been through the journey. Going into year 2, NeuroBloom's team is committed to continuing to provide changing services with the opportunity for clients to realize that there are people who can help them overcome what they might feel is holding them back. According to Adams, it's about creating a safe space where someone can surrender and trust the process, that they may not leave with everything figured out. But so often they leave with something they didn't have when they came in, a little more hope, a new perspective, or a sense that change is possible, she said. Getting to witness that has been one of the most meaningful parts of this work. Very cool.
It is. Very, 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 very cool. And thank you for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network and for tuning in to our video podcast on NOK Networks and Rumble, YouTube pages, as well as our social media sites.
That's right. We hope you enjoyed your update today of mainstream media coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
Many thanks to my sponsors and to my joint hosts, Tara Simpson, and to Bufo Various, and for choosing the stories, and to you, our listeners, for joining us each week on Psychedelic Tuesday, and Kim Cooper in the back smoking dab and having a great time watching us. Let's hear from Dead Ringer again from Kirkland Lake on our way up. Woo!
Looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of